It is those retired military officers who are involved in this same drug menace in the south. Because you didn't deal with it in the last 17 years, it is now a menace even in the south. So for God's sake, please make sure that deputy defense ministers don't come and whitewash what is essentially a cancer. What is essentially a cancer that started in the northeast and now is spreading all over the country. Honorable presiding member, I read through the entire budget speech.
You have 16 minutes.
I thank you, Honorable Presiding Member. I wish to commence by making some comments with regards to some comments made yesterday. The Honorable Chandrasekhar, Minister for Fisheries, whilst he was speaking yesterday, Honorable Presiding Member, he spoke very eloquently about the government's policy on dealing with drugs, the war against drugs, something that we as a party will fully support because the northern and the eastern provinces are the worst affected by this menace. Now, in the course of his comments, I interjected with his permission, and I mentioned that unless the government deals with the military with regards to their involvement in the spreading of drugs, this matter cannot be dealt with in the northeast, and it is an unfortunate hangover from the war years, because we know, Honorable Presiding Member, during the war, the military establishment had a counterinsurgency strategy, and that strategy involved, unfortunately, the spread of drugs in the north and the east, so that young youth do not go and join the LTT. Similarly, there were other vices that were systematically spread. But the war is over. There is 17 years, and we have consistently been asking that the consecutive governments that have governed since the end of the war deal with that counterinsurgency, because for as long as the military remains in the northeast in the way that they do, and they still have that same mindset, then issues such as drugs, the war against drugs, will be an utter failure. Now, when I made those comments, the Honorable Fisheries Minister stood up and agreed with me. He will agree because he has been living in Jaffna for the last 15, 16 years, representing the JVP. He cannot say that that is a lie. What I said was a lie, he can't go to Jaffna. You understand? So naturally, the Honorable Minister, in a responsible way, agreed. But to my surprise, the Deputy Defence Minister, who's here, that's why I'm starting my comments today, because he's here, stood up and he denied it when his speech came soon after. He denied it, saying that the military is very pure, and that Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam must produce the evidence. I can tell you this, Honorable Presiding Member, with utmost responsibility. When people affected go to the police station to make complaints against the military, the police refused to accept those statements. When these matters are brought up every month in the District Coordinating Committee, not only during this government's time, even during the previous government's time, not only during Ranil Wickremesinghe, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, even before that during Mahinda Rajapaksa's time, the DCC meeting chairmen are always from the government. Even they agree. Even they agree that the military is involved. But here, a government that calls for a system change, a Deputy Defence Minister standing up and completely denying it, is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And I can tell you with utmost responsibility, the military has a presence. Honorable Presiding Member, in Vanni, the ratio is 1:2. For every 2 citizens, you have 1 military personnel. Do you mean to tell me that the military, without the military is knowing that the drug menace can happen? Do you mean to say that? Whom are you trying to fool? In Jaffna, the ratio is 1:14. Do you mean to say that without that is the official figure? With the military intelligence, we know it's much higher. You mean to say that without your knowledge, this can happen? So please don't fool us. Please don't fool us. I don't want to make personal comments against the Deputy Defense Minister. We know when he was in charge of the Eastern Province, when two police officers were killed at the Bamunadivo checkpoint, the LTT was accused. The LTT was accused. They tried to make out that it was former LTT cadres who were trying to recreate the LTT, which was an utter lie. Which was utter lie, and he was the commander of the Eastern Command at that time. So I don't want to cast personal aspersions, but I am saying this with utmost responsibility. This government has our best wishes, right? This government will have our entire support against the war on drugs and all other vices. You will have our entire support. But I'm telling you again, in the Northeast, without you dealing with the military's involvement in this, you will never get rid of that menace. And I can tell you again, it is those retired military officers who are involved in this same drug menace in the South. Because you didn't deal with it in the last 17 years, it is now a menace even in the South. So for God's sake, please make sure that Deputy Defense Ministers don't come and whitewash what is essentially a cancer. What is essentially a cancer that started in the Northeast and now is spreading all over the country. Honorable Presiding Member, I read through the entire budget speech. I am not a fast reader, so President Andhra Kumar, I think, might have taken 4.5 hours. I took about 6 to 7 hours reading his entire speech. Then I went through all the supporting documents also. Now this budget, unlike the previous one, which was the NPP's first budget, doesn't say anything about the Northeast. At least in the first budget, there was some tokenism about roads. For the Northern Province, 5 billion rupees was allocated for roads, new roads, in the first budget. And that was made out to be a huge amount of money that had been allocated for the Northern Province. The Northern Province, Honorable Presiding Member, has 5 districts. That means 1,000, that is 1 billion rupees per district. So I asked the divisional secretaries of all these 5 districts, what does this amount to in practical terms? 1 billion rupees for roads. In practical terms, they said 20 kilometers per district. 20 kilometers of roads per district. Now this is what we are told as having emphasis for the Northern Province and the Eastern Province. Eastern Province, there was nothing. There was just one sentence. India will take care of the Eastern Province. In the previous budget. India will take care of the Eastern Province. Northern Province, we had the roads. And the funniest part is Jaffna got 1 billion. The previous year, under Ranil Wickramasinghe, when the economy was even worse, Jaffna had 1.2 billion rupees. So actually we had 0.2 reduction. So this is what happened last time. So at least there was that tokenism last time. This time there is not even that. There is not even that. Nothing about the fact that for almost 35 years, that the North and the East was a war zone. That was a war zone. That the people's economy in that 35 years had to face an economic embargo. An economic embargo where a liter of petrol in 2001, when I first became a member of parliament, was 2,000 rupees. A liter of petrol in Jaffna was 2,000 rupees. Do you think for that 35 years when we had an economic embargo that we could have grown our economy? We were systematically pauperized. We were systematically pauperized in the name of fighting the LTT. It was the average Tamil-speaking people who were systematically pauperized. Okay, there was a war. Today there is no war. In 17 years, has any government in that 17 years after the end of the war chose to identify the fact that the Northeast is something different from the rest of the country? No. But you can't expect that from previous governments. If you go by this present government's logic, you can't expect that from the previous governments, because the NPP government says that the previous government were racist. They governed for the last 76, 77 years because they were racist, because they were anti-minority, anti-Tamil speaking. They discriminated against the Tamils. So naturally, you can't expect those governments, even after the war, to think in terms of, look, the Northeast must be looked at separately. We must protect the people's economy in the Northeast, allow it to grow, and then allow it to compete with the rest of the country. You can't expect previous governments to do that. But this government, oh no, this government is different, no. They came in on a system change. They came in as a leftist party, fundamentally. And leftism, if I can remember correctly, the last time I checked, was pro-protectionism, was pro about wanting to protect the weakened people, build them up so that then they can stand and compete with the rest. But that has not happened. In 1 year, that has not happened. Instead, what do we have? The only 2 times something about the North or the East has been mentioned in this budget, Honorable Presiding Member, is with regards to the Lower Malwatuoya multi-purpose development project. 5,000 million rupees has been allocated primarily for the development of the irrigation, land cultivation, agriculture for the northern province, particularly Mana. 5,000 million rupees. Honorable Presiding Member, and I am saying this with utmost responsibility, this project was identified during the Gotabaya Rajapaksa time as well. We objected to it. I'll tell you very bluntly. Because of the implementation of this project, only 15 Muslim families were going to get affected, because when this project is implemented, there are certain lands that will go underwater. Only 15 Muslim families would have got affected. But the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government identified 1,500 families from the Anuradhapura district, Sinhala families from the Anuradhapura district, and said because they too will get affected. And I'm saying it with utmost responsibility by going by all the details from the divisional secretaries. Those 1,500 families have no effect at all with regards to this project, but they were going to be relocated into Chettikulam in Vavuniya South. So we objected to this. Saying we are not opposed to Sinhalese people who genuinely want to come into the Northeast, live with the Tamil people, look upon themselves as part and parcel of themselves, and integrate with us. We have no problems with that. We never have been against that. But if it is a program that is systematic to try and change the demographic patterns of the northern and eastern provinces, that is something that we oppose. That is something that we will oppose. So last time, even in the budget, there were 2 projects that were mentioned. One was the Lower Malwatoya, this project, and also the one in Batiklo, which affects the anyway. So the Batiklo project has not been mentioned this time, but this has been mentioned. That is the one occasion in which it has been mentioned. The other occasion is with regards to the development of 4 airports. Those airports are Hinguraggoda, Sigiriya, Trinco, and Jaffna. Now, Honorable Presiding Member, 1,000 million rupees has been allocated for the development of these 4 airports. Jaffna is supposed to be an international airport. 1,000 million. What does that mean? 250 million per airport. A house, you will struggle in Colombo with the prices today to build a luxury house. You're talking about airports. You're talking about an airport. 250 million. Who are you fooling? Whom are you fooling? So this has to change.
Honourable Member, you have another 2 minutes.
I welcome though one thing. The Honourable President as Finance Minister has pledged to increase from 3,850 million to 5,000 million, that is 5 billion rupees allocation for the building of 2,500 homes. So that would mean that it will amount to about 2 million rupees per house. That is an improvement. 1.5. That is an improvement. And that is something that we welcome. But it's only for 2,500 homes, Honourable Presiding Member. I mean, India was willing to give 50,000 houses, of which our Malayaha Tamilar also got some houses. 50,000 houses. You should be thinking on those terms. It's a war-affected place, for God's sake. A foreign country is willing to give us 50,000 houses. You're saying 2,500 as if it's some great help for the northern province. So we must put things in perspective, Honourable Presiding Member. It's been too long. It's been too long, 17 years after the war, with a government that claims to change the entire system, change the entire perspective. If you are not prepared to see the immense gap between the northeast and the country, what you are going to do in effect is that you are going to create a situation where those people in the northeast cannot compete, and as a result they are forced to flee the country to wreak out an existence. Is that what you want?
And to remember, your time is up.
Is that what you want? Refusing to accept that the Northeast as a special status means that you are deliberately perpetuating a situation where those people are forced to leave the country, forced to flee, because they just cannot wreak out an existence. And that, Honourable Presiding Member, is certainly no system change. Quite the contrary, it is a perpetuation of the rotten system, that the Rajapaksas pursued as a result of their racist policies. So that has to change. And I'm asking this government to kindly intervene at the highest.
Your time is up, Honourable Member.
I'm concluding.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka must integrate with South India. If ever Sri Lanka is to reach its true potential, it has to integrate with South India's economy. What are you doing to do that? When India is offering to help, are you accepting that? No, you look at everything with suspicion. Palali Airport, you're giving 250 million to develop Palali Airport. India has said that they will develop the entire Palali Airport with their own funds.
Yes.
You are putting blocks to it. The previous government did. You are doing the same thing. You had to change a minister because he was a hurdle to cross. But you are doing the same thing. Not one word about willing to accept India's offerings to develop phase 2 of the Palali Airport, which is just purely to resurface the remaining part of the Palali Airport.
Honourable Member, your time up.
I'm finishing. Which would enable aircrafts from Singapore, Dubai, and places like that to land directly into Palali. Why can't you do that? So if you are serious about wanting to change the economy,
there's a problem with the time. There's another 8 speakers.
You have to integrate with South India.
Thank you.
And if you are to reintegrate with South India, you must completely change your perspective on how you see.
Thank you, Honourable Member. ඊළඟට ගරු එරංග වීරරත්න මන්ත්‍රීතුමා